Hey y'all, what's up? It's Chris, Liege Games. Kickstarters, huh? It's all coming out this week. Side rant, as I think that just a couple things that have caught my eye this week so far. If you've watched any of my other videos, you've noticed that my videos tend to be out later than other people's. And there's a reason for that. Is because two things. One, my goal is not to be the first person that gives you a video on these things. Because especially with the way a lot of these Kickstarter campaigns are run now, especially if you're going to talk about value or whether or not the final pledge is actually worth it. If you take a look at just a couple of the more recent ones, especially like with the animation collection from Simon, you really didn't get a full estimation of what they were going to be giving you until the very end. So if you're putting out a video in the first 12 hours of whether or not you think this is going to be worth it, you're not going to have all the information. And I want to give you as much information as possible. And so that's why I'm delaying things not until the very end, because I don't expect you to cram like a last minute study session of a final exam in college with my video. I want to give you as much information as I can within the frame or the scope of time that's reasonable. We all know we make better decisions when we have more time to think about things. And so that's that fine line that I'm trying to blur. Okay, enough that you're going to feel comfortable with the decision either way, but not too close to the end so that you are cramming, like I mentioned. The second thing is, I'm not going to be putting out video after video saying, okay, well, here is my first 12 hours. This is whether or not you should back it. And then include it in the next 2 roundups or videos with updates. You know, updates if it's significant, updates if it's a massive project and I've already talked about it in that sense. But otherwise, I'm going to dedicate a video to it if it's that big and that detailed and that nuanced, if it really needs that level. And so I'm not going to be having to throw in other tidbits on other videos because I feel like that's just more of a way to get you to click on my other videos just for the sake of doing so. And I want you to click on my videos because you want to watch them and you want to find out about stuff, not because I'm going to be piecemealing the information to you and my opinions to you over several different things, unless something has drastically changed. I mean, that's a whole nother issue whatsoever. So, just a side tangent there. What's on Kickstarter this week? I think we've got some interesting things. The last full week of January, and I'm already seeing stuff pop up about February, and February already seems fuller than January is, if that's of any interest to you. So more so maybe from a budget side of things going, oh geez. But I think the main thing with all of the Kickstarters that's currently funding and that are upcoming is don't feel bad about late backing and don't feel bad about $1 backing. I have found myself wanting to do that more and more lately, not wanting to put down the triple digits on some of these games as much as I want them, just because I don't want to have buyer's remorse. And you can always add more later. It's tough to get it back from some of these companies after you've given it. So, FYI. Let's take a look at stuff. That's enough ranting. That's not the reason you're tuning into this video. And if it is, hey, more props to you. Speaking of side thing, since I'm actually getting on a roll here, I want to say thank you to all of the people that have subscribed in the last couple weeks. All of a sudden, I feel like things are really starting to roll. So if you are tuning into this and you're a new subscriber, hey, leave a comment below. I really appreciate it. I don't think that gets said enough. And I just want to say thank you. I didn't think I would be anywhere near this level in the time frame. So all of this is just a blessing. The other thing I want to say is thank you to my 3 Patreon people. You know who you are. Again, that's probably about 3 times the amount I ever thought I would have. So shout out to you guys, and there will be more stuff coming up on that page as well. I'm terrible about that already, but I am going to be making that a big focus of mine going forward. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk Kickstarters. Hopefully, you can see this a little bit better. Several people have commented or given me some feedback. Make yourself smaller so we can see more of the stuff going on. So hopefully this is a little bit better. You don't want to see my ugly mug on a lot of this stuff. This is the stuff you're tuning in for. So my commentary can just be background noise, essentially. This is Mob the Big Apple, and this is a re-implementation of a previous game. They have reincarnated Capo de Capi as Mob Big Apple. And they've gone with a very unique theme, I think, and that makes it stand out. And I think that's why it's almost funded after less than 24 hours, because it's just something different. Like I said before, and I'm going to say this every single time that it pops into my head, make your product unique enough that other people aren't going to say, how is this different than anything else? When was the last time you saw a game about the 1920s? When was the last time you saw another game about mobsters? Both of these are different. You know, mobsters, you can make the argument that it's very generic. At the same time, I don't see it too often. It reminds me, just on periphery, without looking in any further or any detail, Sons of Anarchy, the area control game, which is apparently, again, not as an area control fan, is a very good game that has sort of flown under the radar from a lot of people. And I think it was probably turned off because if you're familiar with the IP Sons of Anarchy in the first place, it's not a very nice IP. It's a very brutal, dark show. It's not the most uplifting. And I think another re-theme of that into a slightly more broad-based appealing theme would have done wonders for that game and probably would make it on a lot of other people's radars. So let's take a look at this. And I like the fact that, I mean, I think this is an indie game. This is a game that the $10,000 is probably a true goal. So it's by TGG Games. This is their first one. So props to them for putting themselves out there. $30, $55 for 2 copies, $100 for a retail pledge. So they got one pledge level. I kind of like that. Kickstarter Deluxe, period. Boom. $30. I don't know what's all in it, but $30 for a deluxe nowadays is relatively low. So I talked about this last week. It looks like you have the different areas of the city, and you're going to be trying to control. And at the end of the turn, it takes more of the area control, but also the Euro aspect of things. And you're actually going to be fighting. And so that would be the one thing I would worry about, is if you're primarily more of a worker placement type person, if you don't like direct conflict, this might be a game that you are going to easily pass. Now, if you're one of those worker placement people that is more of a hybrid, this might appeal to you because you've got some dice allocation and you've got area control and a little bit of head-to-head combat, which sometimes I think some of the biggest criticisms of those types of games is there is not enough interaction because people want just a little bit more. So this might be appealing. So let's take a look. Sarah's got a quote on there. It looks relatively straightforward in terms of its setup. It doesn't look like there's a lot of overhead. And let's see what you're getting. So all that stuff, meeples. Say what you will. I like the fact that they're not cut out. I like, again, it's something different. You're getting poker chips. You're getting these. I personally, the deluxeifications here knows nothing for me again, but I think it's nice to see that they've gone design-wise a little bit different. John's got a video here. Roll some dice. Place your guys. Place them up on the action board then too, and that's going to determine what they do. And so, interestingly enough, when the last henchmen are played, the round ends. Okay. Similar usual suspects, a few different. You don't see all of these guys on every video, but so you got a couple different faces here, so that's nice to see. Shipping's not too bad, and it's just really, I think this is one probably that at a lower pledge level with the deluxeification, I just wonder what the difference would be at a retail level. I don't really see the talk or the discussion of what a retail pledge would look like. In terms of, like, if I pick this up at the store, how much of the stuff as we've seen above is going to be the meeples? Are those just going to be cardboard chits? What's the difference? And so I think that would be something about whether or not I would want to know in terms of backing now versus later. So taking a look at the rulebook here to get some more in-depth information for you. Now, I mentioned that you end the round when all of your workers have been placed. Both players have to use 20 of their henchmen. So this is not just placing 4 or 5. This is a lot of worker placement and henchman area control. It's not just a simple place 2 or 3 on the board. So that's interesting. And now this is another mechanic that I like. And this comes from one of my other favorite games of area control. One of the few I actually like is Rumble Nation. And it has a very similar mechanic here. Is that, do you want to try and get all yours placed first to get them where you want, especially with worker placement of edging the person out or getting spots that they may want? Or if the other person runs out, you just get to continue placing in a row, so you may have a lot more control over where yours are getting placed and have a lot more influence over the board if they were not as careful and they left holes for you to be able to take advantage of. So I actually like that mechanism. You don't see that mechanism a lot. Usually it's, someone hits an objective or hits a mark and then all of a sudden things just end or the round ends. It's not continue going until you're out. You have the ability to move your henchmen into cars using the dice. And then they get actions. So each action space requires a certain number of guys on it. You have to choose one that's open, but it does not have henchmen on it as well. So if you don't have enough available in your warehouse to perform an action, you have to return them and wait until the end of the round. So there's consequences for not having enough in each of these slots if you can't get them there by the end of the round. You're just not going to be able to fill them and use the action. Here are all your actions, your secondary actions, and this is just why I'm not a big fan of the worker placement. I don't do all of these in action, in sequence, strategically. So all in all, it doesn't seem like a terribly complicated game. It seems relatively straightforward. This iconography is relatively straightforward. I would be interested to see what happens with this. Are there going to be stretch goals? What else is going to come of this game? How else are they going to differentiate it? So it's definitely worth checking out if those two things are an interesting combination to you. I don't really see a lot like this. And this is a two-player area control game. That would probably be my biggest concern backing this, is how well does area control work with less than, 3? And I haven't really played any in that sense that do work well with 3, and I just really haven't played any that don't work well with 3 either, less than 3 either. So I'm probably not the right person to ask, but just looking at it on the periphery, that would be my main concern. Is it going to be very, very head-to-head? And knowing that it's 2 players, it's probably going to have more take that than even if it was a 3 or 4. So if you're not a fan, I would probably reemphasize that this probably isn't going to be a game for you. Okay, so let's talk human punishment at the beginning. Now, this one is thrown down the gauntlet. As you saw, or maybe didn't see me talk about it during the last week, when I was talking about the upcoming games, the first 2 iterations of this never really flew across my radar. They never really struck me as things I was very interested in. But when I saw the preview page for this one, it actually, unfortunately, again, struck home. And if you've learned nothing else this week from me on this video, or hear nothing else from me, don't read rulebooks, because you'll become more interested in games. So they are at over 2,200 backers, over $200,000 already, and this is not a big company, and so this is their main product and main line, so that's really pretty good. I wondered though about the campaign length. 30 days is a long time on Kickstarter, and I think there can be some fatigue, and I think that's why you see some campaigns, especially the larger ones, go over a shorter period of time, because it also gets lost in the shuffle. By the time you hit day 14, 15, 18, 20, if you're not still stretch goaling after stretch goaling, you really get shunted down the popularity page when people like me search by popularity the majority of the time. I worry about that. At the same time, it is what it is. So let's talk about this. Why should you be interested in a 3 to 6 player game that they are comparing to Battlestar Galactica on the front page with quotes already? I actually have no clue about this video, and I watched the 5-minute what it's about, sort of how to play. It's probably one of the best, most well-produced videos I have seen on Kickstarter in terms of advertising a game. That's impressive. So what is it doing? It's semi-co-op, it's pick up and deliver, and it's deduction. Now, if you've heard me say this before, I am not a big fan of pick up and deliver. So I watched a little bit of the video, I read through the rules book, and this is a little bit of different pick up and deliver. It's not pick up, deliver, go back, or pick up, go out there, grab it, and come back. It's grab it, go, bring it to where you want to, and that's where the deduction parts of things come in along the way. And this does have a very unique aesthetic to it, and they reached the goal of the 48 hours, so everyone's getting acrylic standees. They have not gone miniatures, and I think that's helped the price. I don't think this would be affordable if they went miniatures. So if you're a miniature person, this is not going to be for you. The general pledge already is $67 US, $110 US for the all-in. And why is it $110? It's because that 35 euro difference is because, as you'll see down a little bit lower, there are heavy-duty poker chips. And if you've looked at the other games that use them, Wonderland's War, or all the chip theory games, they are expensive. And so that is where the expense is. So here we go. Can knock BSG off its throne. Now, the interesting thing in here is it reminds me of Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, because at the variable player counts, the faction numbers are going to be slightly different. Sort of like the Shadows over Camelot, where if you are at like 5, you only have 1 bad guy. If you're at like 6, 7, or 8, you potentially have up to 2. And so there are, I think, 4 or 5 different factions, I'm blanking on it right now, that you can have: the humans, the machines, the Legion, the Loner, so the Fallen. So I think 4 different factions that you can have going at the same time. And you don't just have to have your faction win in terms of laying these chips down that you're delivering into the mainframe, you also have to meet your secret objective. So you may be on the human team, but unless you meet the human win condition and then you meet your individual win condition, you aren't getting full credit. So there's a little bit of co-op nature there. I think the co-op is going to override some of the semi-co-op, and I think it's more just faction v faction. But it's really unique. This is the video I watched right here. So if you have 5 minutes, watch this video. It gives you a little bit more information just in a nutshell, so you're going to know whether or not it's for you. And you have your own skill trees. And to be very frank, I read some of the rulebook. I did not read all of it. It is a very dense rulebook. I will say right now, as beautiful as the rest of this is, I would definitely have a professional editor look over the rulebook because it's very dense, it's very verbose, and I wonder if some of it can be reorganized or condensed or explained in slightly different ways, because as I've become better at reading these, that's only happened through sheer practice. And this one is still a tough one. It's something that I would recommend to them as a layperson trying to get into it, because if it's hard to get to the table, that's going to be the ultimate barrier. The easier it is to get to the table, the better the game is going to get. You want to give a game a chance in the first place, but if you can't get it to the table because the rules and the overhead is too dense, especially if you're playing with asymmetric factions, look at the game Vast. There's so much asymmetry that it sounds like a dream, but the actual overhead in it, of you having to teach each different faction during the setup what they're all trying to do, that is a huge potential wall in terms of getting it played well, and leaving a good taste versus a bad taste in somebody's mouth. So what you're doing is you're going to have a couple phases during your turns. You're going to be grabbing these data chips out of the beginning sectors, and there's two different routes, a north route and sort of a south route. The north route's quicker, there's a little less stuff, and there's a little stuff varied up here, and then the south route is a little longer, but there's stuff down there that's going to allow you to upgrade, but also find out about other people and what faction they are, or maybe what they're trying to achieve. So there's a little bit different things that you can achieve via going whatever route you prefer. You're going to be fighting enemies along the way, and now you are going to be rolling some dice. There is some dice rolling in terms of enemy placement. There's 3 sets of dice, an orange die, a red die, and white dice that you are going to be using to determine where, which one, and just how strong they are, something along those lines. There's going to be skill checks, and these skill checks are where sort of the other bluffing co-op, semi-co-op comes in, a la sort of the voting on Secret Hitler, if you will, if you're going to compare it to that. This event card pops up, and it's going to have a number, like a 9, or a -9, or a +9. And everyone is going to lay down, essentially, as many cards as they want to contribute, anywhere from 0 to, I don't know if there's a max amount, I don't remember. But what they're trying to get is either above or below, and depending on who is the leader or the general in that round, you're going to be the one that enacts that, or, you know, dictates what happens even in that event afterwards. There's going to be an upside and a downside, and it's going to have various influences depending on what faction you are going for and what you're trying to achieve. And like I said, each faction has its own variable win condition. Here's the rule book. First impressions. Now, this is really interesting, and I think this is probably purposeful. You've got your Quackalope and you've got your Dice Tower video at the top, and I didn't realize this until my second glance through. And then it goes into what you're getting, and all the standees and the player boards and the cards and, you know, regular size cards. Please, less games. I will put that out there. I am not a big fan of the mini poker cards. Anyway, side tangent. You're getting the tokens, you know, you're getting all the other tokens. Here's the enemy units, and then the leader pledge, you're getting all the upgrades and the chips. So, and that is Kickstarter exclusive. You're getting it in multiple languages. They've got social stretch goals. They've got all of these goals, holo cubes, events, player boards, weapons. So, I mean, relatively low add-ons right now. And so I'm not sure if that's intentional, if that's reserving stuff for later, or if that's just staying within their own boundaries of what they know they can do and not trying to add too much that is going to delay the project. So it's definitely unique from what I've read. I have not seen anything like it. Like I said, it's a combination of already the games I've mentioned of Secret Hitler, a little bit of Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, and then this strange pick up and deliver sort of burn cycle-esque, where you're putting these chips in the cycles, and when all 3 are filled, you're going to determine, and by randomly flipping them over after mixing them up, what's in there. sort of like the voting in Secret Hitler. You're going to mix them up and see who voted for, how many votes are for one and how many votes for another, but you're not going to know who voted for what. This is impressive. And now the problem that I have, and like I said before, human, machine, legion, fallen, an outlaw. I was right. There was 5. So I screwed that up twice. You are the ghost faction, and so but you don't know where the allegiance is, and your allegiances are all of these that I mentioned. Now, the interesting thing is now you see the rest of the video. So they definitely purposefully placed Quackalope and Dice Tower up higher just for name recognition. It's interesting. Should you back already on the day one prior to the campaign launching? Just interesting. I've never seen that before. And lots of videos, lots of language videos for different languages. And I have to believe that this price is not going to be any less with the extent of stuff that's in here. And I wonder if this is going to be, available from us in selective exclusive retailers. I don't see this game pop up in other retailers from other games, and maybe that's just lack of knowledge on my part, but I would be interested to know how prevalent it is at the retail level. Shipping is going to be what it's going to be, whatever. Honestly, it's a really intriguing concept, and I almost wish I hadn't read the rule book right now, because I wouldn't have been at all interested in it before this. But I think just like BSG before it, and this is the comparison I'll make, and I'm probably going to end up doing a video for this because it's that intriguing to me. There's a lot of overhead and there's a lot of learning, and I think it could be good. You're going to have a group that is going to understand, know the intricacies, know the balance between the factions, like what is one faction trying to achieve and what is the other one trying to achieve. Because if you don't know what the machines are trying to do and you're the humans, or you don't know what the fallen is trying to do and you're the outlaw, you're not going to be able to stop them. You're not going to be able to notice when it's happening in front of you, which means a game like this could very easily fall flat. That is my biggest concern. And let's be honest, price point is a little bit more. If this was $90 instead of $110, I'd probably be much less gun shy in terms of clicking on this. But I hate to say it, that this is going to be definitely down to the wire backing for me or not backing. And it probably depends on what else is going to be out there between the now and when this ends, so my Kickstarter budget doesn't get totally blown out of the water. So that is Human Punishment, the beginning. So next up, let's take a look at Radlands. Now, this was only announced relatively recently, but it's got the Roxley brand recognition. The guys who brought you Brass, the remake of Brass, the deluxe edition, as well as Dice Throne, Santorini. The pedigree is there. The product, we have seen quality products come out. And again, I looked at this when this was announced. I like super deluxe. Super deluxe. The artwork, the aesthetic, to be honest with you, I'm not really a big fan. The colors remind me of the Dinosaur Island aesthetic. And I understood the color scheme, but I wasn't really a big fan. And so, for starters, that's a personal taste more than anything else. No criticism. The artwork itself is very, very high quality, but the color scheme is not purposefully attractive to me. I looked at this, and I think the one thing that I still, after reading through the page, the one thing I want to see is I want to see some gameplay. I would like to see a rule book, because neither of those are significantly out. And first and foremost, when I heard this, I said, another 2-player game, another battler. What is the point of this in terms of there is a saturation on this sort of market already? You've seen a couple come out at the end of 2020 on Kickstarter. You have, Sakura Arms, you have Exceed, you have Yomi, you have BattleCon, you have all of these games. What is this going to bring to the table that's different? And so I might actually do a whole nother this or that on this later, maybe next week, so that you can sit down and say, okay, what am I looking for? What is making this different? And to be frank, right now, I'm not sure I have enough information to give you an in-depth look. I can give you a very superficial look after this. Now, again, the pedigree, they're talking about one of the developers from Magic the Gathering, so it's a good background. It's a good thing to focus on. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm not as familiar with Android Netrunner, but it sort of gives me that vibe, if that makes a difference at all to people, because what you're doing is you have these camps that you're going to be randomly selecting. Out of 6 that you get, you're going to be selecting 3, and those are essentially your bases that you're trying to protect. Now, the interesting thing in this game is they take the base, they make the base integrated into the actual gameplay, rather than just making the base something that is solitary to just be defended. It synergizes and can interact and give abilities and interactions in a very positive way with your characters, your events, and whatever else abilities that you have. And it's going to be producing water. And so each of these produce water, as you can see here with a token, that allow you to activate the abilities on the people that you set in front of them, all with their own unique abilities, as you can see. And the big thing is that with these tokens, as you can see, that they've gone the upgraded route. And so you're going to be getting a more deluxe version there. Now, say what you want about deluxeification. I am not always the biggest fan, but the pedigree here speaks for itself with Roxley, with the excessive goodness that came from Brass. As much as I am not a Euro person, I hear nothing but rave about the quality, the chips. From a design QA standpoint, it is, fantastic. And so to hear that $40 is the pledge level for that is honestly a lot less than I was expecting for a deluxe version. And if you know the Brass going to retail through Roxley, it's not widely available. It's often only through their website, and it is more than what it was a Kickstarter. So you do not actually have to worry, because they have put their money where their mouth is in the past with their other products, that they truly are going to be more expensive with the deluxe version. Now, you can pick up the retail version probably for less, as you can with Brass, Birmingham and Lancashire. So the question is it worth it? Is the deluxeification worth it? And I don't really know yet. I haven't given it that much of a depth of detail, because they also have the super deluxe, which gets you 2 playmats. So playmats, I can take or miss. It's a nice aesthetic feature, but if it's going to cost me $20 extra, it's a good price for playmats, but it's $20 I can use for shipping for ISS Vanguard or an add-on for that. So I might pass. And you're going to be trying to destroy the camps, as I said. MVM's got a video on here. You can see a little bit of it. Again, I wasn't a big fan until I actually looked at what you're doing. The biggest concern I have is just the number of cards in these situations. Cards, 23 of these. Actually, that's camp cards. So that's actually relatively amount, because you're only choosing 3 per game per side. Damage, you're killing people. 46, again, I just wonder about the depth from 46. How many different combinations are there going to be able to be done? Or after half a dozen games, are you going to see very similar endpoints? Because this is a little bit less meta than, say, your Exceed or your BattleCon in that sense, I get the feeling of. Again, they've got abilities you can use and abilities that are always in play, so you've got both of those elements. You can stack guys in front of each camp so that you can't get attacked directly. And event cards happening, each turn. The water tokens that I mentioned, the water silos, there are those fat, heavy backgammon discs. I like the term that they use, fat, there. Anyway, it just funny. Here's the mat, and there you go. That is pretty much it. And so, like I said, I really want to see some more video. I want to see some more gameplay or just a rule book before I'm going to be completely comfortable. Otherwise, this is one that I would also think about even trading for afterwards, because this is a game that I think a lot of people are backing based on reputation right now, and not necessarily because it's a 1v1. Or I guess you could make the counter argument that it's not as successful as their other projects because it is a 1v1, and so you only have 2,000. That being said, still over 100,000 on the first day. So all in all, pretty decent start for a game that wasn't announced until like a week or two ago. Next up, Reload. I mentioned this last week as well. Now this is taking, your Player Underground Battlegrounds and making it into a board game. And I'll be honest with you, again, I wish I wouldn't have read the rule book, because I went from being completely disinterested in this game to actually going, this is pretty clever, actually. So, I mean, they've already met their funding goal, which, again, this is an indie game. This is a $20,000 goal, and they have, I think, really focused on the gameplay as opposed to the aesthetic. And so I think that hurts them a little bit, because I don't think the aesthetic is as appealing as pulling you in as several of the other games that I already just kind of went through. That being said, they've done something very unique here. When you achieve certain objectives in the game, you knock somebody out, you injure them, you trap them, you do something to them. What you're doing is you're trying to achieve fame. And you can see this bar right here that is in the middle of the screen. And what happens is, depending on which objective it is that you do, they all have different lengths. The harder to achieve objective, the more difficult one to achieve or do, is a longer bar. And it brings you closer to reaching the end of filling your own fame bar. And the first one to the end of the fame bar wins. because I think the concern was, how are you going to adapt a battle royale type game where, in these actual games, it's more of the last one standing? Because that doesn't really work in a tabletop game setting like this nearly as well. Not nearly as fluid, doesn't adapt nearly in that sense. But they have done it very cleverly here. The iconography, I'll be honest, is not the most clear, and there's a lot of little overhead when it comes to these and the skulls, and this is the buzz bonus damage, but you're actually rolling 3 dice here, and then they're defending, but if it's melee and the defender rolls more dice than the attacker, then the defender's actually going to do damage to the attacker, even if the attacker's dice beat the defender's dice that are matched. So there's a lot of overhead going on and a lot of nuance, and I think that's from a balancing standpoint, but it also makes it a little bit, harder to set up in the first place. Again, speaking from the human deduction, how easy is it going to be to get to the table? That is definitely one of my criteria now. This, though, has a very unique indie vibe, and I'm glad I read the rule book, because I was not expecting this to be as appealing as it is. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a game for me, because it's just that different, and it's a lot of head-to-head 1v1 v1 v1, and I don't do a lot of that, and that's not going to click with my group. But this is really much, I give them a lot of credit. This is much more impressive than I was expecting it to be when I saw sort of the hex grid and the plastic miniatures. It's very clever, and I was very happy to read the rulebook and actually say, oh wow, this is nice job on this. And the only thing I'll say on the pledge levels is $29 is basically your retail version, and you're not getting stretch goals. $39 gets you the stretch goals, and it's just going to be seeing what the stretch goals are. $59 is going to get you an expansion for 5 to 6 players and a capture the flag expansion. So I'd say overall, I'd probably lean towards the middle one if I was going to be backing it. It's one of those games where ignore the aesthetic for a minute and go read the rule book and go watch a video on how it plays, because I think you might be pleasantly surprised by it if you don't judge it by appearances first, because I think it's doing some things cleverly that haven't quite been done in that manner. So again, I'm not really sure it's for me though. So I think this, of the last 3 that we've talked about, it's probably going to be the easiest for me to say, not quite, but I'm not surprised that it's funded, to be frank, after reading the rule book and seeing the amount of effort that went into this that I did not originally expect. And I mean that as a very, very positive compliment. There's no backhanded compliment there. I mean that as, hey, this is pretty impressive. So even if I don't end up getting this is something that I would probably follow at retail and see what it played like. But this is something I would definitely have to play before I'd be willing to put money down, I think, right now. But it would definitely be something I would follow in the future as well, from a designer standpoint, to see what else they could do in the future with it. Button Shy wallet games, if you're not familiar, they put out wallet-sized games. A lot of these are lower player count, and what they're doing with this campaign is they're doing a reprint of a lot of their games, just because, again, smaller publisher, smaller production, higher overhead, more of a one-man bandstand type situation. And as they hit higher funding goals, they're unlocking more of their previous games, because printing some of these games costs more money if you have fewer copies, obviously. And so the more copies you get, or the more overhead you raise, the more you can sort of branch out. And I have never seen any of these games before. I did not look at the shut up and sit down games. I may end up doing that because, again, making the mistake of actually reading some of these Kickstarter pages is the first problem. So if you're like me, just don't even read the pages. Just don't even click on it. You're better off. Your wallet will thank you. Because you have Antinomy here, which is 2 essentially players, 30-minute game, and it's a sorcerer, and you're imbuing magic, and you're creating crystals. I don't want to watch this because I might be forced to back it, because it's jiving those keywords in my soul that I am interested in. So, competing sorcerers searching for magical crystals. Gosh darn it. Arcane Bakery. Okay, I can skip that one, thankfully. Hopefully, because that is more of a, what does it say? It is more of a resource management game. Okay, I'm not a big fan of resource management. I can pass on that. Liberation. Okay, I can pass on that. Oh crap, it's Miniature Rebellion of a Galactic Scale. Okay, maybe I can't pass on that. It's Star Wars Rebellion in a two-player 30-minute game. Ah, crud. So I'm gonna I'm gonna check these out later. Again, the theme does nothing for me on this one, thankfully, and I don't know the rest of them, so I'm gonna hopefully be able to pass on them. But these are small games. They have small imprints. They have small impact, and they're easy to carry around, and they're relatively good priced. I mean, $10 for a game. You're getting a discounted the more you buy. So I hate this because it's one of those that if I wouldn't spend it and I wouldn't be interested, I could use it to buy Radlands or something else that won't get played anytime soon. But the idea at least is there, and so I'm definitely going to be checking this one out more because I really haven't. And I think things like this are worth a shot, just to even know, okay, let's check it out in more detail to see if it's actually worth it for me. Or is it just going to be $10 that I could have spent elsewhere doing something else that's actually going to be more to my sense of appeal? I don't know. But I'm going to give it a shot, and so maybe I'll let you know next week what I think about some of the actual games themselves. Button Shy Wallet Reprint. Zodiac War. Here we go with Zodiac War. I mentioned this as well. I was actually right on some of these, so that's nice to see. And 2 to 4 player game, combining, as I mentioned, astrology and tarot cards. And this is, I mean, I didn't see anything about this whatsoever. At least most of the other games you can at least point to and say social media. You can say a little bit of hype here, a little bit of hotness there. This is one that I really didn't see, and I found it, incidentally, and the artwork is fantastic. The artwork is probably among or even better than any of those other 4 games that I mentioned in terms of quality. It's just, I need to probably watch a gameplay video and read the rules on this that I have not, because it has these 2 rings that you're going to be playing, and you're going to be moving and aligning and trying to match in terms of using the actions to your favor on your turn. And you're going to be playing these cards from your hand to, attack other people, collect, resources, or buying crystals in the rest of the phase. You can also buy more cards. And so I like this 6-minute video previews. Whether or not you like some of these games and whether or not some of these games are for you, you have to admit that a lot of the games that I've talked about just on this week, a week I expected, frankly, to be a completely down week that I could easily pass and say, you know what, nothing on my radar is interesting. These guys are doing unique things, and that's what's exciting in this industry, is that it's not just a reskin, retheme, reimprint of the similar mechanisms in a similar way with a slightly different theme. I haven't seen boards that turn like this and use intuitively. I haven't seen the pick up and deliver social deduction combination. Is what's exciting, because I think you're just going to see more and more of this, especially when people start to borrow and incorporate ideas in other ways that we haven't seen before. I mean, take a look at all of a sudden the worker placement deck building that's coming out. 3 games within a couple months. What a combination are we going to see? And so that's what I'm interested in seeing, and that's why I love seeing these fund, and I love seeing them get the support they deserve. Again, I haven't done my due diligence on this one in terms of what the gameplay is actually like, but the aesthetic is absolutely fantastic. I really hope this funds. It looks like something that could completely fly under the radar, just like Reload. So let's see, price. Okay, digital image. Okay, what game? $45. Okay, that's slightly more than I was expecting, including the stretch goals. $100. $100 gets your name in the rule book and player printed on the board. Okay, essentially $45. So $45 is what you're getting. So here they're giving you a lot of the background on the theme and why they've gone with it, from the zodiac signs, the planets, the elements, and how the board is designed to mimic that. This is also a game that I would say is, if you're not going to get it on Kickstarter, this is a game I don't think it's going to come to retail. Now, $45 is probably higher than I was expecting, but if you're going to go with high quality components from the get-go and not put them in stretch goals or false stretch goals, that's probably not unreasonable, because this isn't going to be a massively large production where you can maybe get discounted costs. Just by looking at the page though, okay, so play 3 cards to do different actions, and they all seem to have a lot of text on them. That would be my biggest concern, is you've got 5 phases each turn. Now, some of these are very minimal, but this part of the turn right here in phase 2 could be a little bit more complicated just by the amount of text on there, trying to combine those, if especially like the cards give you more than one option of what you can do on your turn. You can buy, That's good. So it's a little bit of deck building, you know, hand management there, and discard cards played to allow the next player. But there's going to be interrupts, so that's nice too. So all in all, again, this is something I didn't expect to like, and I'm probably gonna have to watch a couple videos and read the rule book to kind of see if I should be backing something else that I really shouldn't be backing in the first place. Awesome, awesome. My wallet is hating me right now. Awesome. So that is Zodiac War, another game that I really wasn't expecting much of, and again has probably surpassed my expectations of. So I say that as a very positive, and I say check out these last couple because these are quality products. This is, the bar is being raised, I think, already in 2021 of projects. So I'm going to mention this. I am not a person of this ilk at all, but it's coming out. It's out there. If you're watching my channel and you want to know about it, check it out. Railways on the Isle of Wight, and a tricky track building and questionable corporate direction game. Bonus expansion if you're going to be backing on Kickstarter. I mean, this must have a huge following. $68,000 on an 18 game, or 18xx game. I'm assuming that's what this is. Yep, 18xx is relatively a high amount because these are very niche games, and I don't know what the price point is, but woo! Okay, 3 copies is, I skipped over the $75 there. I went straight to the $220. $75 with the expansion that you're getting. And from what I've seen on a lot of the 18x games, 18xx games that have come out at retail afterwards, $75 is probably, especially with the expansion, a really good deal, because I see most of those games running $80 to $100 at retail or on secondhand. Again, I have never played one of these. I have no clue where to start with one of these, but if you're looking for a game like this, apparently it's got enough of a cult following and it's got enough in it that they redid it. And this is another one where aesthetic second, gameplay first. But if you like the 18xx, the train, the heaviness, this is a game that you should probably check out. Me personally, again, nothing from my standpoint, and I can't judge it more than what I just said because it's out of my depth and I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression. But if this is your thing, man, go check it out. Now, Cryptid Cafe. So, as you may have guessed, you're in a cafe, you are Sasquatch-esque, and you are trying to feed all of these various ilk of monsters that come in, and you're trying to keep up with them a la your Gordon Ramsay-esque skills. All in all, you've got a little bit of worker placement, you've got a little bit of resource management, and you've got a little bit of pick up and deliver, I think, in that sense. So they just give a nice basic overview, and I like that this is right at the top, to be honest, because I don't want to go down far. If I can't figure out what a game is and how it plays very quickly on a game like this that I may have never heard of before, I'm going to easily close the tab on it sooner rather than later. So if you want to get people invested, get them interested right away at the top of the page. As we saw last week with the Castles of the Mad King Lugwood page. They threw the Y back at now right at the top, making that crystal clear. So what are you doing? 4 phases. Sending out your servers, collecting food, sharing tips, serving them, cleaning up. So what are you doing? You're doing the worker placement thing. Trying to get food of each one from the kitchen. Phase 2, you're sharing, you're collecting tips, going around, changing position in line. Okay. Serving, you're going out and you're giving that stuff that you just got to your customers based on their satisfaction level. So if you get them the right thing. Phase 4, you move the customers down the satisfaction track, add new customers, rinse and repeat. What they've said is if you don't serve them right, they won't come back. Just like in real life, adapting that theme. So what are you getting? $29 retail version. Okay, cardboard. Meeples. Oh, that's an interesting looking guy. And specialty cards. So $39. Here we go. Unique designs of all 4 of them. All wooden tokens. And there you go. I hesitate because I've been burned once or twice on wooden tokens like this about whether they hold up or not. They only hold up if the game is really, really good. Otherwise, I get very concerned that the only upgrade is wooden pieces. Because oftentimes I've seen the wooden piece games go for the price of the retail at secondhand. I'm looking at you, Monsterlands. Hurts me right here. Anyway, stretch goals. Okay, funded. Upgrade, card upgrade. We've got a couple reviews here. Shipping. I mean, that's a relatively short page. I wasn't expecting a little bit more, to be honest. But they have a rule book. They've got a couple of small videos here as well. I mean, I don't think it's a very long game. I don't think it's a very super deep game. But it is what it is. What you see is what you get on this campaign page. If you like a little bit of worker placement, if you like a little bit of interaction in your worker placement style games, this one might be for you. It's definitely got a unique theme. It's definitely standing out from the crowd. Again, it does nothing for me, thankfully, for my wallet side of things, because I am not a worker placement person, and a little bit of the collect and deliver, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is not for me at all, most of the time. So from those two, just the mechanics, I have no problem passing on personally. And the deluxeification, I think, is the real trick here, and I don't see enough deluxeification in terms of just getting wood and everything. Having been burned on that in the past, I'm very gun shy when I see that that is the case. So I would be much more inclined to check out the retail level unless something else is added into deluxeification in terms of these stretch goals. That is my quick look at Cryptid Cafe. So that's it. That is Kickstarter roundup this week. You know, maybe I put a video out over the weekend just saying, okay, where are my thoughts? Or even maybe next week as some of these campaigns get a little closer to the end, what are my final thoughts on them? Because like I said, a lot of information and a lot of rule books and a lot of games, and I think there is a lot of money being thrown around now with all of these campaigns, a lot of money that I was not anticipating before I looked at a lot of these pages to be even considering spending. I think there's also going to be some upgrades, some downgrades of pledges, just because there is so much. I mean, I still want Primal all in, but, you know, does that make Epic 7 superfluous? I don't really know at this point, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of waxing and waning in terms of interest of these games, especially as they overlap, and especially with February coming in. So I will definitely be putting out a what did I back in January sort of video, but that is not going to be until after January actually finishes, because we still have almost a week left. So we'll see where things go between now and then. As I mentioned, I'm also going to be putting out a video, hopefully in the next week, of a comparison of Radlands versus the other two-player head-to-head type games. So if that is of any interest to you, let's talk the differences and maybe which one is right for you. And, you know, we'll see what else pops up. We'll talk about the Kickstarters for next week as well. Check that out over the weekend. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for new subscribers, new Patreons, new everything. Throw me a comment below. Which one of these looks appealing to you? Have you checked them all out? Which one is the biggest surprise to you of the week? I was definitely surprised, as you saw. So, thanks. See you around. Stay classy.